Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Glad to have everybody here tonight. President Trump continuing his tour of destruction and disruption and revenge. Oh yeah, that's largely what a lot of this is about. We'll talk about that. We're also going to go to the phones tonight, so you'll have a chance to weigh in on the conversation again. Maybe you have a different view on the world, and that's okay. Until you lose what you have, and you wish you had it back. Seems like that's where we're going, because just before the Super Bowl, in his pre-game interview, Trump again said that he's serious about Canada becoming the 51st state. Oh no, he's still joking, Rick. It's a joke. Yeah, right. No, he's not. And all this controversy about the Global Affairs Canada website going down with all the data about foreign aid payments from the Canadian federal government. People making a lot out of that. And we're going to dig down and try to get you some truth about that tonight. Why has that site been down? Are they hiding what they're spending? This all in the wake of the USAID controversy. And people are saying that the federal government, the Trudeau government in Canada, has scrubbed or erased the database that contains all the information on foreign aid payments. So we'll show you what's going on with that as well. Yeah, we've got a lot to unpack tonight. It's Sunday. We're going to look back at the previous week a little bit. I'm going to show you what's going on today as well. Trump at the Super Bowl. Trump also flying over the Gulf of, you can decide what you want to call it, I guess. It seems to be another point of dispute where Trump has alienated an ally once again. Stay with me, more to come.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so let's start with this. Trump went to the Super Bowl today. First sitting president ever to go to the Super Bowl, but before he arrived, of course, he had to do something to piss somebody off. So why not Mexico again? He was he was deliberate in his actions. He didn't forget his Sharpie because, you have to make sure that you always have your Sharpie at hand in case you want to sign an executive order to take over more territory. So here he is on Air Force One, and they took a little jaunt over that body of water called the Gulf of Mexico. And Trump got out his Sharpie, and in his own mind, I guess, and in the minds of some Americans, he decided to claim the water underneath him as he flew overhead.
Air Force One is currently in international waters for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Wow, yeah. He did that well. That's a good... Make America great again, right? That's what we care about. Okay, here we go. So this is a famous pen now.
Air Force One is...
Just because. That's why he did it. Well, maybe not just because. Maybe it's because he really does have his sights set on hemispheric domination, as Steve Bannon laid out in his interview the other day on Canadian television. Here's the president of Mexico, not happy. And, of course, rejecting Trump's claim that the Gulf of Mexico is now called the Gulf of America. Here's President Sheinbaum.
Obviamente, Golfo de México.
I mean, obviously, the Gulf of Mexico is recognized by name by the UN, she says.
Es reconocido el nombre por Naciones Unidas, un organismo de Naciones Unidas.
By UN agencies, but why don't we call it?
Pero el siguiente, ¿por qué no le llamamos América Mexicana?
Mexican America.
Se oye bonito,
nice,
¿no?
It? Right?
¿Verdad que sí?
Since 1607, Apanzigan's constitution was made in a Mexican way.
Desde 1607, la constitución de
Since 1607,
Apatzingán era de América
the constitution was
Mexicana.
made in a Mexican way.
Entonces,
So we will call it Mexican America.
vamos a
She's renaming the United
llamarle
States.
América Mexicana. Se oye bonito,
Just a
¿no?
suggestion. Sounds pretty, doesn't it? She says. Well, why not? I suppose she has just as much authority to claim territory and rename land masses or bodies of water as President Trump. I'm not sure where he decided that he got that mandate from the American people to rename the Gulf of Mexico in international waters. Is that democratic? Is that what people voted for? I don't remember that being on the agenda when he was campaigning. Does anybody? I'm going to look in the chat. Does anybody remember him ever saying he was going to rename the Gulf of Mexico? Anybody? I don't remember him ever saying it. Yeah. What else can he rename? How about Toronto? He could rename Toronto. Call it what? I don't know, Little New York. How about that? Or how about I don't know, the Parliament buildings. Called what? The Red House? I don't know. What else does he want? Just how about take Newfoundland on Thursday, and Saturday he'll take BC. Just takes whatever he wants. I don't remember ever, even one time, him mentioning any of this. He never said during his campaign that he was going to annex Canada. Never said that. He never talked about tariffs to this degree on his allies. Oh, it's just about the fentanyl. It's just securing. No, it's not. No, it's not. Not at all. And everybody, and so many people are cheering for it. You ready to give up your country for a bit of a tax break promised by a politician who is not going to be there forever? But your country will be gone forever. And who knows in what form, and who knows how your rights or lack of rights will be affected. And if Canada becomes the 51st state, what will become of our First Nations? Do you think for 1 minute that Donald Trump is going to honor the treaties that our First Nations peoples have in place? Do you think he's going to care? He doesn't care about the imaginary border that exists between our two countries. Don't get me wrong, I love the USA, but I love my country too. This, something's not right. But, no, he's still joking. In fact, Preston Manning, former Reform Party leader in Canada, was on a live stream over the last couple of days. Candace Malcolm, I think, is the name. I didn't watch the whole thing, but it's his belief that we should just treat this as a joke. He's just trolling us. Ted Cruz, we played his podcast last night, part of it. And he said, oh no, he's just trolling Canada. I don't think that's really going to happen. Okay, how many times does the guy have to say it before people actually take him seriously? I've been telling people for over 2 years that this is a real thing, a real threat to Canadian sovereignty, because people have been floating this as trial balloons, getting people, sort of normalizing the idea. I lost the clip here. Here it is. Here's President Trump with Brett Baer just before the Super Bowl game today in his pregame interview.
You announced tariffs on Canada and Mexico. You immediately got action from both of them on border security and drug interdiction.
I did. A lot of
action.
Is that good enough?
Is that good enough?
No, it's not good enough.
So more needed in 30 days.
Something has to happen. It's not sustainable. And I'm changing it.
The Prime Minister said this weekend to a group of Canadian businessmen, he was at a private meeting, he said that your wish for Canada to be the 51st state is a, quote, real thing. Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state, because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada, and I'm not going to let that happen. It's too much. Why are we paying $200 billion a year, essentially in subsidy to Canada? Now, if they're a 51st state, I don't mind doing it.
Does that sound like he's joking? Does it sound like he's joking? No. I don't think he's joking, because he's saying he's not joking. Is he joking about the Gulf of Mexico becoming the Gulf of America? Was that a joke? Nope. No, he's quite serious about it. He signed the executive order. That's pretty serious. I don't know if other countries will recognize it or not. To me, it's still the Gulf of Mexico. Just because one guy decides one day that he's going to rename it Gulf of America, is that legitimate? He signs an executive order. I suppose he can do that within his own country. He can call it whatever you want, but again, it doesn't seem very diplomatic and certainly not very democratic. And you're There was no international discussion on this, no meetings. He just declares it. What is he, the king of the world? I'm just asking for a friend, a bunch of friends on this side of the 49th parallel. I boggles my mind, and people are okay with it. Some people, not me. Not me. Canada RV says he thinks he is what, the king of the world? Yeah, dictator of the world. I mean, I used to just dismiss people who warned us that this guy was a dictator. And that's hyperbole, you know? But yeah, and during his first go around in the White House, he didn't seem like a dictator. He moved toward things, but that was not the same as what we are getting now. He's come in, and in 3 weeks, he's taking a wrecking ball, not just to certain government departments. He's taking a wrecking ball to the entire government. This is not, in my view, a change of the guard. This is like a democratic coup. And he's out for blood. He's going after his political enemies. And Elon Musk is helping him. And while I applaud any effort to trim government waste and go after inefficiencies, that's one thing, But there's a process that needs to be followed there too in order to preserve democracy. When you have government programs that people voted for through many different governments over time, and these government programs are established, and the funding is approved within the governmental system, in this case by Congress in the United States, it's not, in my view, constitutional or legal to simply have one guy go in, a hired gun, if you will, by the president, who says, go in there and just clean all that up, just start shutting everything down, and then just eliminating programs. And a lot of what's been going on, from my perspective, is as they shut down a lot of they're shutting down just about everything, like literally just destroying the entire USAID department, whatever. And now they're going to go after the Pentagon. A lot of waste there, I'm sure. But the thing is, it's like they're publicizing the shutdowns of departments that are progressive and woke as though it's corruption in itself. Just like anything that is progressive in nature, that, it's highlighted as though it's like illegal or something. These programs are not necessarily illegal, and they weren't necessarily approved in a clandestine manner or through backroom deals or anything. It was all done out in the open. And if you don't like that stuff, then you vote for a president and a government that goes in and should begin the process of shutting those programs down. But you do it constitutionally. You do it legally through a proper process. Because if what you're getting right now is it's like these are all approved. People voted for these things in the past, and then they just go in and he arbitrarily shuts everything down with no checks, no balances. And Elon Musk is not elected. He's appointed by the president. Basically, he's just hired. And the only authority that he has is whatever it is that comes from Trump. So this is Trump. Ultimately, the buck stops there, literally stops, because the payments are all stopping. Approved money, like budgets approved by Congress. So he's saying, screw Congress. He's usurping their power. And that's the power of the people. So this is not a government of the people, by the people, for the people. This is Donald Trump acting on behalf of certain people who like what he's doing. And that's okay if you're getting what you want. But if you're on the other side, Maybe you're not happy with that, but that's not democracy if you don't follow proper procedure. And Mike, here's Mike. He's got a different opinion. Okay, apparently you're not educated enough to know what's happening here in America. We got fraud like you wouldn't believe, and don't chastise us for what we're trying to do. We are clearing up the fraud. Well, that's fine. Expose the fraud, deal with the fraud, but he's also shutting down approved programs. And all I'm saying is, if you allow this to happen now, in this way, that at some point you're going to have a Democrat in the White House, and they'll turn around and do the same thing to you. And that's not effective government, because that's just one guy coming in and undoing what the other guy does, and taking a wrecking ball to everything all the time. And that's not efficient. That's completely inefficient. And people will suffer as a result. It's one thing to clean up corruption. It's one thing to clean up waste, but it has to be done legally. If it's not done legally, then you've got a lawless society. It's like freedom. If you think you have freedom, that's fine. But if the person that you disagree with is denied their freedom, then you don't really have your freedom. Because freedom for one depends on freedom for all. Justice for one depends on justice for all. If justice is denied to some people and afforded only to a handful, then it's not really justice. Because justice has to be blind, it has to be handed out evenly. Everyone has to be treated the same under the law, and so too in this, with the way that government programs, procedures, this kind of arbitrary, unilateral, dictatorial, authoritarian approach is not democratic. This is not freedom. This is a guy coming into office and saying, that's it. I'm changing everything and I don't care about any other level of government. Then why have a Congress? Why have a Senate? Why have other politicians at all? Just have a king. What other people say doesn't matter. And in fact, we've seen the courts in some cases now blocking some of what he's been doing over the last week. But now you've got a lot of legal wrangling going on in the meantime. Like, that's going to move very, very slowly. And he's firing people, maybe with cause, maybe without. And as a result, you'll probably end up with a lot of litigation. I don't think probably, it's definite. You're going to see labor unions suing the government. You'll see individuals suing government. It's going to turn into a legal mess. It's going to cost the government a crap load of money. It will cost the American people a lot of efficiency in the long run, in my view, because you're going to have so much conflict because he's not following proper procedures. You don't follow proper procedures, you're going to get a lot of legal pushback. And that's going to tie up the courts, and the lawyers are going to get rich, and that's not serving the people properly. Now, you might think if this was being done to you, you wouldn't be happy. It's the same thing with this CBS News 60 Minutes pushback, where he sued CBS for $10 billion because he didn't like the way the Kamala Harris 60 Minutes interview was edited during the campaign. Now, I've got issues at times with CBS and a lot of the media, but $10 billion because he didn't like the way they edited the clip. And I see people cheering for that, but that is in itself actually an assault on free speech, because what CBS did is they edited the interview for brevity, and they ran two different versions of it. There was a shorter version, which they ran, I believe, during like a preview, and so there was a shorter version of the clip that ran in response to a question. And then later on another subsequent broadcast, like later in the broadcast, they ran a longer version, or on another program, they ran a longer version of the answer when they had more time. But of course, with television, you only have a certain amount of time in any given hour or even half hour. And so it's commonplace to edit interviews. And yeah, there was a lot of the interview that was cut out as well. A lot. That's always the case. You watch a news story in the middle of a newscast, those stories run about a minute 30. And within each interview, you have short little clips that run about 7, 10, 12 seconds. The rest of the interview isn't carried. They're sound bites. The rest of the interview is edited out. It's not uncommon. It's everyday common practice for news outlets to edit their content. And they went to the FCC. FCC gets the raw video and releases it. And you know what this is? This is Trump. In this case, really, he doesn't care about free speech. He says that he's getting rid of censorship, but this is in itself an attempt to affect censorship. This is an attempt to censor the media. In fact, I think I've got a clip of him up here on the campaign trail where he was complaining about it. You know, he's whining a lot. He always whines. Anyway, he calls for the shutdown of 60 Minutes should be taken off the air immediately, he said during the campaign trail, because he had his nose out of joint over the way that they had trimmed up that clip. Well, I mean, okay. You don't have to like it, man, but you still won the election. And it doesn't appear to me that anything was really taken out of context. Both answers came across sort of incoherent to me when I watched them. I didn't think either answer was any good from Kamala Harris. It didn't really matter which version. And then, you know, I watched Jesse Waters on Fox. In his analysis of it, if you will, it's like he says he tried to make a big deal out of the fact that other longer portions of a very long interview had been edited out. And the FCC, when the FCC released the raw video, of course, they got to see the whole thing. But of course, they're going to cut some of it out. They only had so much time. This hour has 22 minutes. Or so the saying goes. Here he is. Here's his clip.
On the raw footage of Kamala Harris' 60 Minutes interview last October in the heat of the election, Harris, Hail Mary with CBS. But the network was caught deceptively editing this answer. Watch.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening. The Wall Street Journal said that that your administration has repeatedly been blindsided by Netanyahu. And in fact, he has rebuffed just about all of your administration's entreaties.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. And we're not going to stop doing that. We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Trump sued CBS for $10 billion, and it looks like they might settle. But before that happens, the FCC released the full interview, unedited, and we have the tape. They talked for an hour and left a lot out.
Of course they did.
Here's an answer that never made air. Watch.
I'm trying to understand how it is that with this emphasis on the border, the numbers of crossings quadrupled under the first 3 years of the Biden-Harris administration. How did that happen?
There are a variety of factors that relate to what we have seen globally and what we are not immune from at our own border in terms of what we have seen in terms of surge of immigration and irregular migration. And there are solutions at hand, but we've got to have leaders who are solution-oriented, which we've been and are.
CBS also cut out their host pressing Kamala on how she's going to pay for all of her giveaways.
If all of this makes so much sense, why has this not been done? You're dealing with a Congress that is divided, that many are in opposition to not only you but your policies. So how are you going to make this come true?
Bill, if I approached my life as though, well, it's never been done before, therefore it cannot be done, I wouldn't be sitting here in this interview with you. That's the truth.
Then 60 Minutes tossed Kamala a big fat softball.
Whatever, man. I just to put it in real perspective here for you, that ain't raw footage. It's labeled raw footage. It's not raw footage. Fox edited that interview to fit their time. So they left a lot out too. That sure as hell isn't raw footage. Regardless of what side of the political aisle you're on, if you're in the media, you should be, defending free speech, free media, and resisting government intervention in how content is presented. Now, there is regulation, as I understand it, in the United States against a television news outlet. It prevents them from distorting the news intentionally. There is a regulation against that, but as I watched those clips, neither one made any bloody sense to me. So it really didn't matter which version ran. They were both incoherent. And the reason they were is because it was a sensitive issue and she was dancing around the question, so it just became a blah, 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 blah. So be it. That's politics. That's reality. And the bottom line is the whole thing is inconsequential anyway. The interview, the way it was edited, the way it was presented, it was honestly inconsequential. Didn't matter. Trump won the election. It really, in my view, had no impact at all on anything. He just had a temper tantrum and decided to sue for $10 billion, which is bizarre in itself, the total amount, the amount that he sued for. But hey, why not? If you're gonna sue, go big or go home. But this, to me, again, it just shows that this is an assault on freedom, which I find very distasteful, and I find it alarming as a journalist. Not because I like Kamala Harris and not because I'm pro this or on this side of the political aisle. I'm on the side of freedom always. And this ain't it. This is not freedom. This is a form of censorship. Because what he's doing, and the reason CBS is in the process of possibly even settling with him, is because he's the president, he has a lot of power, his nose is out of joint, he's on a revenge tour, and he's flexing his political muscles right now, and CBS is scared because I think that they have right now some bid into there's a merger or a media acquisition that's underway that's worth around $10 billion, actually. So he's suing for $10 billion. And they don't want to mess any of this up because he can have their license yanked. And if you don't think he can't, think again, because right now he has Elon Musk, who also controls a media company in X, which is a form of competitor even to CBS. But that aside, you have this super powerful president who clearly isn't afraid to use his Sharpie, and he could put them out of business like that. So they're afraid of him. And he's not the only one. All the media outlets are afraid of him. That's why we saw, who was it the other day? And this just popped back into my head. It was, who was it that resigned? Jim Acosta. Yeah, they yanked him from his time slot. They were going to put him on at midnight on CNN, right? And he said, no, I quit. And I've never been a Jim Acosta fan. I didn't like the way that he was aggressive and confrontational with Trump. But don't kid yourself. That guy was being pushed to midnight because Trump was putting pressure on CNN. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the tone of the coverage over at CNN since Trump's election has changed. So you see, media manipulation, censorship comes in various forms. Well, he said that he was ending censorship. No, you're just getting Trump's version of it. Because it's the pressure that he's putting on. He licenses. The government provides licenses to these media outlets, all of them. Big money at stake. Here's his national security advisor, Mike Walls, today on Meet the Press. Not quite as hard line on the whole question of Canada being absorbed, annexed, taken over by the United States, saying that he doesn't think we're going to be invaded, but
in a closed-door meeting with business leaders, outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau warned that President Trump is serious about annexing Canada to make it the 51st state. Is he right? Is President Trump serious about planning to annex Canada?
Look, I think the Canadian people many of them would love to join the United States with no tariffs, with lower taxes, and I have all kinds of neighbors down in Florida that are Canadians that are escaping many of the liberal policies and have moved in. But look, what we're talking about
yes
here
or
is
no? First of all, I think some Canadians would disagree with you.
In the Western Hemisphere?
I think some Canadians would disagree with you, but just yes or no? Is he planning to annex
part
Canada?
Of his policy. Well, I don't think there's any plans to invade Canada, if that's what you're talking about. But there is a lot of people that like what we have in the United States and do not like the last 10 years of liberal progressive governance in Trudeau. But really what you're seeing is a reassertion of American leadership in the Western Hemisphere, from the Arctic all the way down to the Panama Canal. And that's what we're talking about, from Greenland to Arctic security, to the Panama Canal coming back under the United States. America has avoided our own hemisphere, where we have the energy, the food, and the critical minerals for way too long, and you're seeing a reassertion of President Trump's leadership.
The New York Post has reported
a reassertion of American leadership in the Western Hemisphere. Right. Yeah. Got it. They're not going to invade, though. Not like this hasn't been planned or anything. Like, they didn't plan any of this. Bernadette says people are sick of liberals. Yeah, but you know what? I'm not sick of my country. And you have a lot of liberals in the United States, too. You just had a liberal government in the Democrats. And they were there, and they're going to be back. So you think you're going to escape liberalism by joining the United States? And I'm not saying that's where you're at, Bernadette. I'm just asking this as a general question to everybody. It's not about, like they're making it out to be that. Join the United States and we'll free you from Trudeau's tyranny. Yeah? You don't like the Liberals? Vote them out. But it doesn't work. We can't do it. It's never going to, it's all rigged. Yeah? What happened in the United States just now? They voted and they changed the government. And I don't like what's happening down there because I don't like the way it's impacting other countries, including ours right now. I don't like it. That's my view. I don't want to lose my country because my country is not Justin Trudeau. This place will be around in one form or another long after we're all gone, including Justin Trudeau. And the question is, what will we leave our kids? But hey, you know, if there's a war and the United States institutes a draft, and we're part of the United States, your kids are going. You don't have a choice. Right now, we have choices like that and a lot of other choices that we get to make for ourselves, and we get to choose our destiny as Canadians, and we are different. Our history is different, and this isn't a reassertion of American leadership in North America and the Western Hemisphere. This is an assertion. This is new. The United States has never controlled this area, this territory, this country. They're not reasserting anything. Not a damn thing. And it's becoming increasingly clear to me, too, that a lot of the people on the Trump side have refused to give up on the old struggle with the UK. At least they're overlaying that onto what's going on here with Canada. Now I am beginning to, my other eye continues to open, so that soon I will have two eyes with which to see in a fully awake manner. And here's Joe Butler. I'm not coming here to listen Rick Walker OU's reading a Chat Canada RV. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. And Dragon says they are dictating how to feel about becoming part of the United States. And anyway, we can come back to all this stuff if you want when we go to the call-in portion of the program. I'm not liking this. You're going to miss it when it's gone, if it's gone. A lot of people missing it right now. Let's take a little break. I'll come back. I've got more stuff to queue up. Yeah. Get your work boots on with the steel toes. My shins will be back for a good kicking from my haters when we return.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media,
but the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Maverick News. Expose lies and tell truth. The world is watching.
Everybody's talking in Canada anyway about, and some people in the States, about the Government of Canada, Global Affairs Canada website, where they have this database showing all of the foreign aid payments that Canada makes. Now, we don't have the same system. We certainly don't have like I don't think an equivalent really of like USAID in Canada. But we do, of course, have a lot of foreign aid programs, which I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, would, have concerns about. Well, after the USAID wrecking ball started swinging, and Elon Musk started taking things down and firing people, offering people buyouts and doing all the stuff he's doing, of course, there was attention focused on what's going on in Canada as well. So a lot of people started going to the Global Affairs Canada website to access the database that gives you the list of all the different programs that Canada has for foreign aid. A lot of money flowing, a lot. And again, I mean, this is all money that over time has been approved for programs that, frankly, most people aren't aware of, not because it isn't public information, it's because people don't ask. For the most part, people outsource their government. They go, they vote, they elect some politicians, and they ignore it pretty much until the next election, except for, brief periods where they complain about things like taxes being too high without really knowing or understanding what the government's doing because they're not paying close enough attention. And who really has the time to watch question period or the committee meetings and follow the various bills as they go through the motions and approval processes in order to get these programs on the road and get the budgets approved and so on? People generally don't, vast majority of people don't dig into the details on this stuff. Well, to make a long story short, of course, a lot of controversy. I'm sure many of you are aware that a couple of days ago, 3-4 days ago now, the Global Affairs Canada website went down. So that resulted in reports coming out suggesting that maybe the Trudeau Liberals are trying to hide something, that all of this is the result of the USAID shutdowns taking place and the cutting that Elon Musk is doing, and the government's trying to hide what they're doing here in Canada now, fearing that people are going to find out what they've been spending money on. So yeah, if you went to the website, to the page with the database and all that information, you were going to see something like that. forbidden access server error, or something that looked like that. Couldn't find that web page. And so, of course, instantly people went straight to the idea that the government had intentionally taken this down. There were allegations made that the government had scrubbed or erased the database, getting rid of all the information. Although, honestly, that wouldn't make a lot of sense to me, because all these budgets have been pre-approved. It's all public information. It was public information when those budgets were approved to begin with. There are records of them. There's backups. It's not like you can hide the information indefinitely. So Global Affairs Canada did issue a statement saying that there was a technical problem and that it wasn't intentional for the site to go down. No real specifics beyond that. Maybe they did take it down. I don't know exactly why. Maybe they didn't want people looking at it because of all the media attention focused on government expenditures right now, and they're concerned about optics. But it seems to me that it's like shooting yourself in the foot if you did something like that intentionally. There's some speculation as well, and no confirmation from government really on this front, but nothing that I've been able to glean from this at this point. But there's some speculation that so many people are going to try to find the data that it crashed the server. That's also possible. Or it could be that they were under attack in some manner and it forced the server to go offline, and maybe we just don't have the details on it yet. Regardless, I was able to find out that indeed service has been restored. So all the information is back out there. So if they were trying to hide it, they did a pretty poor job because they just put it all back up. I'm not exactly sure when it all came back online, but here's the web page live right now. And if you go in, you can find all of the information on all these programs. Here's one, Accelerating Detection of Tuberculosis. It's a United Nations Office for Project Services. It's a $100 million. Closed. Nutrition improvements in sub-Saharan Africa. Access to COVID-19 tools. These are all World Health Organization initiatives. There are a lot of other ones. You can find all the information on all these kinds of programs right here in this database. Also, there was another place you could go on the government website while all this controversy was going on, and apparently you could download a CSV file with all of this data as well as like a bulk download, even while the other stuff was offline. So I'm not sure that what they, these allegations of something sinister going on are really accurate. It does seem a little odd though, doesn't it? That this happens right around now. Maybe we'll find out more, maybe we won't, but the information was out there before, it was just down for a while, now it's back up. If you want to go find out for yourself what kind of government programs are out there, you can do that. Of course, some media outlets zeroing in on various programs and highlighting some of the expenditures. Here's some, for instance. I've got another page up. And yeah, I mean, I have no issues with people taking issue with some of these programs and the way tax dollars are being spent around the world. I really didn't like the way Justin Trudeau hopped on the jet and started flying around the world handing out money as soon as he was elected. I really found that distasteful at the time. It was like he went around the world handing out Canadian tax dollars to governments and friends in country after country after country. He was on a freebie tour Canadian tax dollars, sprinkling money around the world. And yeah, we couldn't really afford that, but he did it. And we have programs like this in place. But keep in mind, all this stuff is approved, right? Yeah, here's a lot of the same stuff that I just sort of showed you. But this was something that another live streamer isolated and then put up. Reinforcing essential mental health services and medical oxygen response for COVID-19. That was 25 million. Support to COVID-19 therapeutics, 20 million. That was in 2021. So this is a lot of COVID expenditures from the pandemic for various countries, released around the world to various places. So again, if you don't like that stuff, make your concerns known to your member of parliament and vote accordingly. But there's no sense in complaining unless you're going to get involved and do something about it, even if all you're doing is calling into the program here tonight to voice your opposition to the way money is being spent. But that being said, you can't expect to have change unless you get involved, because the reason that money was spent the way it was spent is because people with opposing political views did get involved. And they got their guy, their people, their government elected the way they wanted it. And that runs in opposition to a lot of what the people on this channel, who are our viewers, the way that you want it to be. So don't be surprised when your money gets spent in ways that you don't like if you let the other side get more involved and engaged than you, and they win the election. That's the way it works, man. If you want what you want, then you got to work to go get it. That's the way it works. Get involved in the political process, at least some level. What else do we have? Oh, did you see this cover of Time magazine with Elon Musk on it? I'll just put it up here so you can see it if you haven't seen it already. I don't know. I don't think Trump is too happy about it, because Time put Elon Musk behind the president's desk in this image. Something eerie about it to me, you know. It's something about this gives me a bad feeling. And I can't say much more than that. That's not scientific. That's not based on anything other than when I'm looking at that, it's like, why do I feel like this is a prelude to something disastrous, something terrible? Just doesn't feel right to see that. This whole thing, honestly, just with Trump and these first 3 weeks, it feels off. It does not feel to me at all like the first Trump administration. This is very heavy-handed and fast, and is pushing allies away from the U.S., not bringing them closer. Look at this. I mean, look at what Canada's doing. Because of these threats of tariffs, Canada eyes more ways to ship oil to China as U.S. threatens trade. That's in the Financial Post. Of course we are. We're already talking about building the east-west pipelines to get Canadian oil to other markets so that we're not held hostage, essentially, by the United States and what's going on down there. We need more than one customer. And once we do that, not only will we sell more oil, we will get higher prices for it. But Canada has some allies down in the United States, at least some politicians down there and political figures seem ready to defend Canadian sovereignty and at least support the idea of Canadian sovereignty, even in places like Kentucky. Here's this is CBC saying American lawmakers are pushing back against Trump's tariffs and they hope Canada notices. Here's is this the governor of Kentucky? I think it is. Yeah, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear.
But the threat, as we've been talking about, remains very real. Now, Kentucky Republican senators Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell are speaking out against these tariffs, and so is the state's Democratic governor, Andy Beshear. In an exclusive interview, I asked the governor about what tariffs could mean for Kentucky and his message for Canada. Governor Beshear, thank you so much for making time for Canada.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
We're about a week into this 30-day tariff pause because of the agreement that the President and Prime Minister Trudeau reached. What do you think is the likelihood here that the pause will continue, that tariffs can be avoided altogether?
Well, I certainly hope the pause continues, but my real hope is some final agreement can be reached. Tariffs are only going to increase prices on the American people and probably on the Canadian people. These are two countries that have had such a close relationship. Canada is one of our strongest allies, one of our strongest friends, one of our strongest partners. And what we're able to do in trade has helped places like Kentucky. In my state, Canada is our #1 export market. You're 22% of our total exports worldwide. So to me as governor, it's really important that we move past this and get back to that strong relationship we've had.
What would be the impact, do you think, Governor, of 25% tariffs on Canadian goods, including energy, and then, of course, the retaliatory tariffs that would be imposed by Canada?
Well, the result would be that the American people would face higher prices. Listen, I believe Donald Trump is president because the last group of movable voters thought he would do more to ultimately lower prices and help them pay bills at the end of each month. But the president is focused on anything but lowering prices. He's been caught up in every culture war issue that he can find, and then is willing to put the American economy and the prices that the American people pay on the line for non-economic things that he's trying to negotiate. I think it's been reckless. I think it would harm a booming U.S. economy. And I think it unnecessarily harms a relationship with Canada that's been such a good relationship.
You're a Democrat, of course, but Kentucky is a red state, and it voted for Trump last November. Trump ran on these tariffs. This was part of what he put out there. So how do you explain this disconnect, the fact that the people in the state, like President Trump, but they are going to be impacted by these tariffs? Is it that they didn't really understand what this would mean?
Well, Trump put a lot of things out there. He talked about Hannibal Lecter and sharks and so many other things during his election. So I think it's a mistake to say he talked about one issue and that's why people voted. But I'll give you some numbers. 30 is the amount of points that Trump won Kentucky by. 95, that's the percentage of the world's bourbon is made in Kentucky. And 0 could be the number of bottles of bourbon on shelves in some Canadian liquor stores because of the president's actions and the response from Canada. But here's what I'd say. In Kentucky right now, we have both of our senators, Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, speaking out against tariffs, saying they'll raise prices on the American people. The Democratic governor, that's me, is speaking out against tariffs. And so I do hope that the Canadian government, in its response, sees people who are trying to do right, stand up for the right things. And we don't want to deprive great bourbon from anybody around the world.
Well, we'll see whether the bourbon stays on the shelves or not, Governor. The president has pointed to the issue of border security and fentanyl as the reason for moving ahead or for threatening these tariffs. Canada is responding and has said, okay, we'll spend more at the border. We'll get a fentanyl czar. We'll do a variety of different things. Do you think that that is what is fueling the president to move forward on this?
Well, I'd say our opioid and drug epidemic in the United States is real. No place has been hit harder than Kentucky, though we do see hope. Our drug overdose deaths have gone down 2 years in a row, and there's a lot of people out there fighting that good fight to get people in treatment and in recovery. But when you look at the numbers, the Canadian border is not one of the causes of this epidemic. And the Canadian government has come through and says and is saying that they'll do more. And you all aren't immune from this drug epidemic either. Working together on this, not threatening each other with economic harm, which can sometimes just escalate drug use, unfortunately. It's just not the way to go about it. And certainly, I think what we've seen from the Canadian government and promises to step up enforcement should end this thing entirely. I could tell you from most Americans, we didn't vote. Most Americans didn't vote for the president on these issues. They don't view Canada in the way that he does. And I hope that Canadians that are watching this, watching me, and watching this whole thing unfurl, this is not the majority consensus of our country.
There are a lot of Canadian officials who are spending time in Washington. The premiers, so kind of like our governors, are heading down there this week to make the case. Are you planning on having any of these conversations with Canadian counterparts? What is your ability to influence people here, Governor?
Well, I've had conversations with one of your premiers, certainly willing to have others. What I'm trying to do is talk to my federal delegation. And again, both senators who are on different parties than I am have come out and talked about how tariffs are a bad idea and will only raise prices on the American people. And I think that is a big breakthrough. I mean, these are two people who are viewed with respect inside of their party. I hope I'm viewed with respect inside of mine. And let me tell you, the Democratic Party in the United States views Canada as a close ally and is entirely opposed to these tariffs.
You're talking about Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell, just for people who don't know which senators you're talking about there. Just finally, Governor, you've sort of hinted at it here, but there are Canadians now only buying Canadian goods, canceling trips to the United States, taking down flags in border towns. And I just wonder whether you are concerned about the relationship beyond the issue of trade.
I'm very concerned about the relationship. This has been one of our closest, if not our closest relationship as a country for decades. The amount of trade and goodwill that has been built up over time, the fact that when there are issues around the world, we have stood together in just about every single one of them. And here's what I'd say. Up until this administration, this relationship has been so close. This administration can only last 4 years, and I hope backs off the brinksmanship with both of our economies that this administration seems to want to engage in. My hope is we can repair any damage that's been done, because I think that the United States and Canada are both stronger when we stand together.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. Let's get some other stuff cranked up here. I think it's just about time to go to the phones. So why don't I get that set up? And you guys can call in and join the conversation. A few other things I can talk about in the meantime. Well, you guys kind of get dialed in on that front, but here's the number. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. Yep, okay, the phone lines are activated. You can call in. I'll put it up on the screen again. Oh, and yeah, we could use some help around here. So if you want the show to continue, keep us on the air, you can donate at freedomreporters.com. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the thumbs up if you're watching over on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up on Rumble. You can also donate through the Rumble Rants. I'll have to take a look there in the chat and acknowledge some of the goings on in there tonight as well. And please hit the notification bell if you subscribe over on YouTube. And then you'll receive notifications when we go live each night at 7 p.m. Eastern and on Fridays at 10 p.m. with Maverick Midnight Matinee. And if you want to join the conversation, there's the number on the bottom of the screen on the ticker, 1-647-734-4220. And then punch in the meeting PIN number, which is 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Okay, what else do we have going on? Oh yeah, President Trump says he's not going to deport Prince Harry because he says Prince Harry has enough trouble with his wife, Meghan Markle, as it is. He says she's just terrible. And also this week, Buffy St. Marie was stripped of her Order of Canada by the Governor General, but because there was a controversy surrounding her heritage. Some people saying that Buffy St. Marie is a pretendian, that she isn't Métis, isn't First Nations, isn't an Indian at all. That's a story that we've covered in the past. And the deportation, or the question of deportation, was centered for Prince Harry around those questions about whether he might have used drugs and whether he lied about it to get into the country. And of course, he's living in the United States right now because he doesn't really want the responsibilities that come with being part of the royal family. Concerns about deportees being taken to Guantanamo Bay. I've outlined some of what those concerns are for some people. And Kristi Noem on CNN being asked about it over the weekend here again. And here's what she had to say about detainees at Guantanamo Bay being forced to sleep in tents on cots. Because even though we were told they had capacity for 30,000 prisoners there, it looks like the accommodations are tents.
You're building tents for a lot more than how many are there now? Well, they're putting up tents that will have the capacity to go up to 30,000 people. That's not stood up yet because a lot of our soldiers that's got there received orders just days ago. I think they've been putting up facilities for the last 5 days. So they've got a lot to do yet, but they have the capacity to start taking individuals. When I saw those tents first thing, and I saw the pictures of you in the tent, the cots. Right. First thing I thought is, how are the worst of the worst, as you and the president describe it, going to be in those tents? How is that even safe? Or we're following all the same standards and procedures that we've always had with our detention centers, whether they're in the United States and now to be utilized here at Guantanamo Bay. So those facilities, I think we need to be really transparent about and make sure that people know what they're like. And we're going to be encouraging people to continuously, if you're in this country illegally, you should go home. You should go back.
So we'll see how it goes. Of course, concerns about what goes on at Guantanamo, and as soon as prisoners arrive there, they are not afforded the same rights as certainly citizens of the United States and even non-citizens within the United States who are on U.S. soil, because Guantanamo Bay is in Cuba, and the rules are different over there. As I outlined in a previous broadcast, which I won't rehash all of that information tonight. What else do we have going on here? Danielle Smith, Premier of Alberta, in some hot water, under a lot of fire, and that's because of Alberta Health Services and contracts being handed out and allegations that Danielle Smith might not have been on the up and up about some things. Says here, now this is actually a post from yesterday, CTV, after 3 days of silence surrounding explosive allegations concerning the procurement and contracting process at Alberta Health Services. Premier Danielle Smith issued a response. She said that, finally, she did. She says the allegations, first published in the Globe and Mail, middle of last week, were troubling, and that she will be writing to Auditor General Doug Wiley to ask for an expedited review. Here's what she posted. I have read various media stories containing allegations regarding the procurement and contracting processes of AHS. They are troubling allegations, and they should be reviewed as quickly as possible. To that end, I will be writing Auditor General Doug Wiley, blah, blah, blah. She says she's done nothing wrong. We'll see how the audit there goes. You want to talk about government corruption? Maybe there's some there, maybe there isn't. This is hurting Danielle Smith at the moment. A lot of people, even since she was elected, people who wanted her elected because she's a conservative with the United Conservative Party of Alberta. Certainly not woke, if you want to call it that. But as soon as she was elected, people started complaining about her too. Because people, it seems, are never satisfied. Now, here's the Alberta NDP with an anti-Danielle Smith promo or hit piece, anti-conservative ad.
Alberta, if it's true, this is really bad. If it's true, it's corruption. If it's true, it may be criminal. And if it's true, it means the UCP fired people to cover it up. Let me fill you in on the details. You may have seen this headline: Alberta ousted Health Services CEO amid probe into medical contracts, document alleges. It's a lot, so let me break it down for you. Allegedly, the UCP fired the CEO and the board of Alberta Health Services because they were asking questions about very expensive public contracts given to friends of the UCP government. Over $500 million worth. And these friends apparently got paid extra because they are friends with the UCP, with your tax dollars. And who are these friends? Well, allegedly, it's the same guys who bought UCP ministers luxury skybox hockey tickets and brought Alberta Turkish Tylenol. The same guys. Oh, and the CEO and the board of AHS weren't just asking questions about these contracts. They were going to the Auditor General and the RCMP about it. And then they were all fired. Look, these are allegations. They're not proven yet. But if it's true, this is big. If it's true, this goes to the heart of who this government is and what they believe they're entitled to. If it's true, wow. Albertans need answers.
That's the Alberta NDP. One government comes in, the other one goes out. They fight back and forth. The allegations fly fast and furious. What's going on right now with Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Doge, USAID, you know, they're going after Democrats. You think the Republicans are squeaky clean? You think that there isn't some waste there? You think there isn't some corruption there? I think maybe there might be some. You can join the conversation. Share your thoughts on any of this or whatever you want to talk about tonight at 1-647-734-4220. 1-647-734-4220. Call now, call often. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. Did I sense some heads blowing up when Rosemary Barton from CBC was on doing that interview with the governor of Kentucky? I know people, a lot of people can't stand the CBC and they really can't stand her. I'm pretty sure there was, I could hear heads a-popping. Maybe some more are going to pop right now when I put this guy up on the screen. Oh, there he is. There's Justin Trudeau. He was has been over in Europe, Paris, speaking with leaders there about artificial intelligence.
Leadership of the G7 again, followed by next year with Emmanuel. And everybody is going to be having these conversations around AI, and that's a good thing. It's essential and it's important. Because not just it's going to transform our world, but how we do it thoughtfully, deliberately, responsibly is being decided right now. It wasn't being decided 7 years ago, certainly won't be decided 7 years from now. It's happening now. How we make sure that we have the energy to power AI in a clean enough way and an efficient enough way that's not going to set us back in our fight to reduce carbon emissions. How we move forward in responsible AI that actually isn't used for evil or to divide or to cause misinformation and disinformation to further destabilize our democracies. Mais le plus important,
can't disagree with what he said. He's concerned. I'm concerned. Aren't you concerned about AI? We don't know where it's going. We don't know how it's going to affect society, really. It's going to do things, have impacts that nobody really can foresee. We can try, but we won't really know until we get there. And it's happening very, very quickly. He's right about all of it. Now, you might not like Justin Trudeau, but he's not the only one saying it. I've been saying it, sitting right here. And just last night we were talking about that very subject, and I was saying exactly what he said about the energy. That's why Kevin O'Leary wants to build that AI research facility in Alberta. It's because the energy is right there. Natural gas, oil, they can set up a power generation plant to generate the power needed for the AI research facility. Bam, right there. And that's the way these things are being set up. They're not bringing power to these AI research facilities like the $500 billion facility that Project Stargate that Trump announced in that news conference, I think the second day of his administration this time around, there will be a power generation plant right there dedicated to serving just the AI generation. It'll be off the grid. It won't be pumping energy into the grid, not likely. It'll just feed those computers massive amounts of energy. And when you start to think about it, why? Because you have all these supercomputers inside these facilities sucking up huge amounts of power because they are like working overtime on what has become an AI race globally. And everything is happening exponentially, which means that you get, 2 becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16, becomes 32, and it just keeps going and going and going, and doubling and doubling and doubling, or quadrupling, or whatever, even more than that, right? So it just gets to, we're going to see the technology expand, accelerate at a pace that we can't fathom at this point. So yeah, 7 years from now, we're not going to recognize the world. That's, really what's going on even with warfare. And make no mistake, while in that news conference they were talking about developing vaccines, custom vaccines that can be ready within 48 hours, that's one aspect of it. But you really think that they're setting these multi-billion dollar, they're spending $500 billion to develop vaccines? No. Weapons. This is about military applications as well. And yeah, we have to be very, very careful about that. Speaking of weapons, I received information today, and I don't really have all the information on it, but some sort of new drone technology that is being used in the Ukraine-Russia war. And yeah, automated. This is the future of warfare. Here we go. We've got a caller on the line, I believe. And yep. All right, let's see who's on the line with us here tonight. There we go. Bring this person up on the screen. And who's with us tonight?
Roar, that's your dragon.
Dragon, sir, from Montreal. Welcome back to the program.
Well, yeah, the world is changing as you say. It's exponential at the rate everything is going all around. So, in every aspect of your life, I think everyone has realized how much thing has changed from one point to another in every aspect. That's for sure.
It is happening very, very fast indeed, sir. In fact, I'm going to see if I can find you a picture of, I think I have a picture of a drone that is being used by the Ukrainians now. And I think Russia certainly has been accelerating their drone program as well. And yeah, I also mentioned earlier this week that NATO apparently has artificial intelligence that they're using to sort of predict the future. And to me, it sounded like it might just be propaganda, but maybe not. Probably not.
No. To be quite honest, I think it's possible since we know that the Army has been using quantum computer for a long time just to predict the outcome of certain testing. For example, you want to test a nuclear bomb. Well, if you don't want to test it in real life, you're going to use those quantum computer to kind of have an assessment of what could be the possible outcome of it. So
yeah, Ukraine is working on combined arms effect using only drones. This has been in process for months, And this post claims a first successful attack, though there was possibly an earlier one unreported. And here's a picture of what they're doing. It looks kind of low tech, but it's high tech. And I'm not really sure how this is all working or exactly what it's all about, but this is some sort of a new drone that's being used on the front lines. I've also seen pictures of Russia employing. Oh, did I just get rid of the Google Meet thing? I think maybe I did. Hang on. Are you there, Dragon?
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, okay. So I didn't. I'm just getting confused because I've got multiple screens up and a lot of things to click on. So it's just, there we go. I got it now. I'm going to take that down. And we're just back to this. Okay. So yeah, Russia's also has been kind of catching up to what Ukraine has been doing with drones. And we know that they've been, avoiding jamming, radio jamming. And of course, a lot of drones use GPS for guidance. And to get around that, they've been using fiber optic cable over long distances. I don't know. I don't even understand how it works. But Russia's started to use that technology as well. So they're catching up.
Mm-hmm. Well, was it a year ago that the U.S. Army did try or test artificial intelligence in one of their fleet or airplane, a jet fighter, to be quite honest,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So if you go in that direction, yeah, I mean, wasn't 2 years ago that we wouldn't believe this to be something happening, and here you go, a year later, you hear that the U.S. Has tested for the first time some artificial intelligence to pilot a freaking fighter airplane. So I mean, this is very concerning, I think.
And here's
we're approaching.
Here's video in the Baltic states today. They've disconnected their power grid from Russia. Everything right now, a lot of what's going on in terms of the war comes down to energy, right? And the money that flows from that. So right there, this was like a media event where they disconnected the power from Russia. So now they're not dependent on it anymore. And that puts more pressure on Russia because I think, just the attacks on the energy infrastructure on the Russian side, the oil, is affecting their economy. In fact, I have also tonight, let me see if I can find you the picture. Here's some data showing the impact that these sanctions, the attacks on oil depots and so on, has been having on the Russian economy. As a result of all of that, you've got really high inflation happening. Is it up on the screen? I thought we had it. Let me just try again. There it is. Here's a graph. Come on, baby. There you go. Yep. So you can see here, and let me get rid of this overlay. Hang on, not that one. Got to get rid of that one so you can see it. Russia's inflation and interest rates. Yeah, so you've got inflation right now sitting at about 9.52%. In reality, it's probably a bit higher than that, just like it is over here. 2% inflation is usually the target for what would be deemed to be a healthy economy. And interest rates, like 21%. And what we're talking about there is like interest rates for loans. right? For a variety of things. Mortgage rates, like 21, 22, 24%. It's is putting a lot of stress on the Russian economy.
Yeah, I can see the march there is pretty effective.
And we have another caller joining us on the line. Who's there? Go ahead, you're on the air.
Can you hear me?
We can. Yes, we can, sir. Who's this?
Okay. It's John. Hey, I wanted to read you something here. This is not my work. I can't pronounce this guy's name. It's Ervgena from X, but it's Canada related. And he says in 2021, a conspiracy theory started to emerge in Canada that the discovery of unmarked graves equated to the mass graves of murdered children at former residential school sites. This resulted in over 100 incidents of vandalism and arson against Catholic churches. Now, I could be wrong, and I don't think they're keeping numbers, but I've been hearing about Catholic churches in Canada getting burned to the ground for years now, so I think it's way more than that. And then he says, Roseanne Casimir, chief of the indigenous Canadian Kamloops Indian Band, made the startling claim that the remains of over 200 missing children had been discovered in an apple orchard on the site of a former residential school in Saskatchewan. Prime Minister Justin Blackface Trudeau announced that flags would be flown at half-mast for the children. Pope Francis visited the country. Canadian press was rife that this was the story of the century. International headlines ranged from Canada's crying shame in Al Jazeera to how thousands of Indigenous children vanished in Canada in the New York Times. The Catholic Church was the focal point of this hysteria, as many of these sites were on lands either owned by the Church or previously managed by them. The schools were established by Catholic and Protestant orders to assimilate more than 150,000 Indigenous school children, with more than 4,000 passing away throughout the time there.
Yeah.
Many of the children who died were buried in graves in and around the site that have since faded, with some of them unidentified due to the new non-native names that were provided upon entering care. The narrative that the Catholic Church had allowed these children to perish through willful neglect of abuse was offered an unfettered microphone with virtually no pushback or skepticism. However, one of the sites of the alleged mass unmarked graves was dug. The narrative soon fell apart. According to Kevin Jones at the Catholic News Agency, in the summer of 2022, ground-penetrating radar discovered 71 anomalies on the lands of Pine Creek First Nation, also known as the Mine-Gozib Initiative.
Yeah, can I just stop you for a moment? Where are you calling from?
Where am I calling from?
Yeah.
I'm calling from Liberty.
Liberty? Where's that?
The land of liberty.
From the United States of America. Yeah. So what state are you in?
Well, if you consider America free, I don't know if that's the land of liberty.
I don't. So I don't know. I'm just what state or what area are you calling from? Because around here, like this is all well known here. We've covered this story. Certainly, I was.
Oh, you did?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know all about it.
That's great. Yeah, because he even goes on to say that Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Calgary, Tom Flanagan, mentioned in his book Grave Air how the media misled us. Because basically, they go on to say that they looked and they found absolutely no dead people. But the point is
that's not quite true. But there's context behind all of this. Like, so why are you focused on this tonight? I'm just curious.
Well, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Calgary, Tom Flanagan, mentioned in his book Grave Air how the media misled us and the truth about residential schools. There's so far no evidence of any remains of children buried around residential schools.
That's not
So
that's not quite accurate, but okay.
Well,
I can provide
quote.
further context if you'd like.
Please do.
So, I think the whole thing highly politicized. Are you familiar with the residential schools issue in Canada? at all?
Well, I'm familiar with this story. I think I know what you're going to go into, but I don't quite know what you mean. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's a long and it's kind of a complex story. And when this
you're getting at it's like a First Nations kind of a thing versus, evil Canadian colonists kind of a thing.
It is. I mean, it's all steeped in that, of course, and there is truth to the residential school controversy, and and it shouldn't have happened.
No, there isn't. Where's the truth?
So, but here's the thing. Okay, so. Yeah, I was, appalled with the way the media covered this when this story emerged again. It was nothing new, but to say that there are nobodies there, that's not accurate. Nor is it accurate to say that there are mass graves, as Jagmeet Singh of the NDP alleged. And when he said that, and when other people echoed that, the media picked up on that, and suddenly it became this mass genocide, right? But the truth of the matter is, some children did die, and they were taken from their homes, and they were put into these residential schools, and those schools remained in place, many of them, if you'll just allow me, right up until like the 1970s. We had, where I was going to school when I was young, we had, some kids who were like at the tail end of the residential school system integrated into the school where I was in elementary school at the time. So I'm so old that I even remember that aspect of it. But a lot of kids back, like in those, that's all there are kids buried near those schools.
Hold on. No,
but
just
let me finish. Let me finish, please.
Okay.
But they're not mass graves. What they are is they're actually community graves, and there are a lot of white settlers that are buried in a lot of those places as well. And so you have to also put it into this context. A lot of these schools were in rural places, far away from any kind of a hospital. In those days, there were no cars. In the early days of the residential school system, it was horse-drawn carriages. You didn't have vaccines. Right. You didn't have penicillin. TB was a serious problem. Even my mom had tuberculosis when she was young. And she could have died. She survived, but we didn't have the healthcare system we have now. But in the minds of people, when these issues are brought up again, they don't think of it in that context. They just kind of overlay current thinking, in current context to things that happened a long time ago.
Right.
And those graves are not new.
Can I make a point?
Sure.
Okay. And it sounds like we're kind of agreeing. I could be wrong, but and this is relevant, and this does matter. It's not an old story. The reason why this matters is because this is part of the anti-Catholic narrative that exists all over the country, all over the world. They did it in Ireland with Toom. Yeah. What Justin Trudeau did, what he implied, what he suggested, what all these anti-Catholic groups in Canada and in America and in Ireland have been suggesting is that the Catholic nuns and priests put in charge of those children were killing them.
Right.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
And so at first, I think we were talking about two different things, at least in my mind, which is my mistake. It doesn't sound like you believe that the Catholic Church was murdering these children or abusing them. Is that correct?
There's definite evidence that there was some abuse that took place there. It was a different time.
No, there isn't.
Yes,
there is
yes,
no evidence.
No, there's absolute
what is the evidence?
There's written documents. I mean, they had corporal punishment, and it wasn't even happening just there. It was happening. It was happening.
Corporal punishment is not abuse.
And children.
That was normal way people were raised.
There are documents that show that some of these kids did die. That there's no question about that.
Yeah, they died. They died of tuberculosis. They didn't die.
And there was some abuse that took place in there, and I have to acknowledge that. And it's because it's true. I'm not gonna run away from the truth. But
It is
but
not
it
true.
did.
It is not true.
But it didn't.
It is not true.
And somebody has their microphone up. If you can mute your mic when you're not speaking, that will avoid the echo problem. And I mean, you're sitting here making these assertions and saying that it didn't happen, but all you have to work with, respectfully, is an article that you're reading verbatim on the air.
Well, it's an article. That's not an article. In the thing that I'm reading, it has the author who wrote a book on it, and who. I don't know if that's my microphone. Is
Just
that my
because
microphone?
somebody writes a book, it doesn't mean that it's accurate. And for them to say that there are no bodies found, that's not accurate either. There are bodies there. They've been there for like 150 years.
Where they
plus.
were looking, they found no mass graves. And in that thing,
Mass graves,
thread I
that's
was
a different.
reading,
That's a different.
and that
issue.
thread that I was reading, hold on, but because Rick, you're conflating dead children who died of natural reasons
No.
with abuse. And there was no abuse. Those children were being educated and fed and taken care of by those nuns and priests. Those nuns and priests should be commended for taking care of those children. They weren't abusing them.
In some
This
cases,
is just an anti-Catholic narrative
listen.
that Justin Trudeau pushed and that the media pushes today all over the world in a way to
Look, you're
villainize the Catholic
you're
Church.
taking. First of all, you're
And
not. You're
thousands
not.
of churches
Don't. I let you speak. Let me respond. I'm just telling you that as a Canadian who lived actually through part of that during the Chrétien prime ministership and the Chrétien government era. He used to be the minister of Indian Affairs and then became prime minister, and the residential school system was still in place when I was a kid. So I know a little bit about it, and I have First Nations friends who lived through it. Firsthand, not anecdotal. There are documents that chronicle some of this, most of it. There's a lot of documentation, and there was some abuse, not just for First Nations kids, frankly, but even in the school systems that we had during that time, there was abuse from, Catholic schools, various schools. Kids were abused. And some kids died, and a lot. Just stop interrupting, please. And a lot of kids did die from diseases. And things were different. But were they lining the kids up outside and killing them en masse? No, I don't believe that's the case, and I don't think there's evidence of that. But you have to put these things in context. And these kids were taken from their parents, and they shouldn't have been. But at the time, I think the government had good intentions, but it wasn't the right thing to do, because what the intent was.
I disagree. I couldn't disagree
I understand why.
I'd like to make a counterpoint.
Go ahead.
I could not disagree with you more, because what you're doing, in my opinion, is minimizing what Trudeau and what the people who push this lie, because it is a lie.
No.
Okay, fine.
No,
Then
I was
won't talk about
appalled
you
to see
specifically.
what
Let
he
me
did.
talk about Trudeau. Let me talk about Trudeau and what they're doing. This is part of an anti-Catholic narrative, a communist narrative that seeks to replace God's church, the Catholic Church, the authority on faith and morals, replace that with this new God that they have. During COVID, it was called science.
It's not, if I may, it's not.
You're
so much,
minimizing what this is. This is a communist
not.
attack on the Catholic Church, and it's a
No,
lie.
it's an anti-colonial narrative that comes from your 1619 project, which is actually something you'll find in the New York Times, and it's the same political ideology that's in play out in the streets right now. Every time you see Antifa and the Black Lives Matter people and
communists use different tactics. Yes, Antifa is part of the overall communist agenda. So is attacking the Catholic Church, because if the Catholic Church is the authority on faith and morals, then communists can't be. Then the people who want to take over can't be. So they have to replace it. So they use this lie, because it wasn't just put forth as, some kids were abused, and mistakes were made and da 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 da. And I don't even agree with that. You would have to tell me specifically what you're talking about, because but what they were pushing is they were saying,
you're telling me that there was no.
you're sitting there saying
there was no abuse, and
just like they did in
are you trying to tell
Irish
me?
Times did the same thing in
Ireland.
Ireland, and they were trying to lie about
you don't let other people talk, and you're not an expert on this. Anybody else have anything to say about this? Or other callers?
Well, I do remember what happened in 1990s in the October's crisis in Quebec. If some people have some knowledge about that part.
What does this have? What does the October crisis and the FLQ have to do with the residential schools, Dragon?
Well, if I do remember well my history back when I was 10-year-old, the government of Brian Mulroney, if I'm not mistaken, back in the days, wanted to take over certain part of Oka, which had some how you call that?
That was a golf course with a burial ground.
Yeah, under a burial ground. That's a golf course, but I mean, it did a lot of.
They wanted to turn it into a golf course, and
uproar.
It was a First Nations burial ground. Okay, yeah.
So it was a lot of uproar. So, how does that mingle into that situation, which our friend caller just pointed out? It's simple. How does the government or the population normally treat First Nation type of affair is probably disturbing, but we got to remember our history, my friend.
We do.
Because I don't believe that everyone live under a mass burial kind of thing, right? So.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, but what about the churches that have been burned?
Yeah, well, that's not right either, and the government here certainly has not treated that issue with the seriousness that it needs to be treated with, and they shouldn't have flown the Canadian flag at half staff the way they did for the better part of a year. I was very much opposed to that. I think that that's an assault on Canadian pride. And it at a time when more than ever we needed to come together as a nation. That's why I've called Justin Trudeau the worst prime minister in Canadian history. He's failed to unite the country. So I'm not in disagreement with you, but what I'm saying, sir, is that we need to be accurate about these things and put things into proper perspective and context. And I can't just sit here.
The point is that, Rick,
the point is, if you'll let me finish, the point is that we need to be accurate. You need to be accurate, not just take an extreme position on something. Accuracy is important, and that's what I want. If there are graves, then let's find out exactly what's there. They haven't exhumed any graves, and ground penetrating radar is not conclusive. And so I've said from the very beginning, if you have evidence, let's see the evidence. Let's get down to the truth, because truth requires proper context and perspective. And to say that it's one way extreme or the other is not accurate. And you'll only get to truth
Rick,
if you have proper perspective.
It made it sound like the Catholic Church was murdering children en masse. That was the storyline.
I didn't say that.
And now hundreds of churches have been burnt in Canada, and it's still ongoing. It is relevant. And no, you can't. And no, that's not fair. You can't say, oh, we can't say that the Catholic Church is not mass murdering people. In effect, that's what you're saying. You're trying to prove a negative. Like it's like asking, when was the last time you beat your wife?
No.
There is no evidence
that
the Catholic Church en masse abused children. There are no mass graves from the Catholic Church hurting people.
Okay.
When children would die, they would bury them. Those priests and nuns were helping those children. They weren't harming them. It's a lie, and now churches are being burnt to the ground. And I'm sorry, you are minimizing it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the call. Have a great night. All right. That's enough of that. truth is truth, and I'm not going to sit here and listen to lies one way or the other on it. I've called out, I don't even know how we got on this issue tonight. We've covered it extensively in the past when it was happening. I don't think it was any accident that it occurred right before that election where Trudeau was reelected. But I'm not going to sit here and either minimize the impact that all of that has had on First Nations peoples here. It's real. The abuse was real. It did happen. We know that it happened. It's documented. We have firsthand accounts from people, survivors. We know all of that is true. But is it true to the scale at which it has been politicized? No. And are there mass graves? I don't believe that there are. And if there are, then show me the true evidence, not just ground penetrating radar, which in some cases has shown that it's like irrigation trenches and things like that that are showing up on the radar, not actual mass graves. There are no mass graves. Jagmeet Singh used that term, and then it got picked up by the international media, and they ran with it, and I was appalled because it, again, cast Canada in a negative light and portrayed the country as though it's some genocidal Nazi kind of nation. And that's not true either. There were problems, but not that kind of problem. And yes, a lot of those kids died because of health-related issues at a time when there wasn't proper health care. And at the same time, my position on this is that, I think that the government of Sir John A. Macdonald, who said that they wanted to, what was the phrase that he used at the time? Dragon, maybe you can help me out here. What did Sir John A. say? He said that they wanted to get I can't remember the phrase. It's on the tip of my tongue, but it's like they wanted to get the Indian out of the child or something like that. I can't remember the phrase.
Yeah. Well, basically, I will just paraphrase what he said, but basically it was re-educate them.
Yeah, they wanted to integrate those kids into Canadian society. And I mean, in my view, what was going on there is you had a country on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution. And again, I have to, the other person there, whoever's on the line, I have to mute your mic until you're ready to speak because we're getting feedback. You need to turn the audio down on your computer because it's causing feedback loop. But we were on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution. The government could see that at the time. We were the internal combustion engine was just coming online. The world was changing. And in order to make sure that these children, all future generations, including First Nations kids, could have a future in a modern industrialized society, they required an education. So they were damned if they did, damned if they didn't, in my view.
My phone.
Because if they didn't provide an education, today they would have been accused of oppressing the kids and not providing an education at the time. But so they took the kids and they took them out of the care of their parents in order to get them what they would at the time think would be sort of a modern education. And as a result, it was not just about, there were cultural issues there. And that's why today some people see it as an attempt at a cultural genocide is the way it's characterized. Accuracy, perspective, it's all important. And I don't mind if people want to call in and share their views on a variety of these topics, but at the same time, we have to be respectful. And I'm not going to acknowledge extreme views on this or anything if it's not accurate, if it's not true. Because when it comes,
you have brought a good point.
When it comes to facts, I mean, that's the thing. Factual information is not always open to, total interpretation. So you can't just choose your reality, in spite of what some people believe, although, reality becomes a construct, particularly in many aspects of politics, but not with regard to this, not when you have documentations, survivor accounts, actual bodies in graves that are confirmed to be there, but also improper context, not mass graves. That's a different kind of thing. It's not like they were killing children en masse, digging pits in behind these schools and throwing bodies in. That's not what was going on at all. Back to you, sir. What were you going to say, Dragon?
Well, I was about to say that, this is the thing that you kind of brought up, and it's a good point, I think. In every industrial or in every culture revolution, like the one we're having right now, this is where you got a war of idea. And not only that, but you got a sort of I would call that a sort of radicalization of the ideas, where you get two sides, like the left and the right, being so much dispersed between each others and so much space between each others that it brings up a certain of feeling of extremist, sort of a someone on the far left will think that the other guy on the right is completely far off.
Yeah. Look.
And vice versa.
Dragon, I've got somebody in the chat right now saying, Rick, that the claim, here's Patty. Rick, the claim the Catholic Church committed mass abuse is a lie. Well, mass abuse, there was abuse. There was absolutely abuse. You can't tell me there wasn't abuse. There absolutely was some abuse. And there wasn't just abuse in those schools. There was abuse in other Catholic schools. Heck, I've covered, there's a church here in town, right here in town, where we had cases of abuse. Not a residential school, just a church where kids were going to Sunday school and to different programs. And they called the priest there Father Feeler. And there were a bunch of court cases that came out. This is a story that I covered here probably, it's got to be 25 years ago now, in this town. I covered it personally, interviewed the victims of the sexual abuse within the church. There's abuse there. If there was abuse happening at that time, there sure as heck was abuse going on in various schools back then, and there was more abuse going on, I think, in those days than there was now, and a lot less of it reported. And even with regard to the abuse going on in the case that I'm talking about, where many people came forward years later as adults and sued the church and won their court case and got large settlements as a result. These things, what can I say, man? Like, it's a real thing, and people get upset about it, but it's not a lie. But it's also important to keep things in perspective. Okay, another caller joining us live now. Who's on the line? Go ahead.
It's Isabel.
Isabel, thank you for calling.
Hi. Boy, you really went for a left turn on that caller, didn't you?
A left turn?
Well, it kind of went off of what we were listening to earlier.
Oh, yeah, off of the beaten path, that's for sure. Yeah, different subject matter altogether. Why he brought that up tonight, I don't know. It's
that's old hash. I mean, okay, I went to school in the 60s. I was not, let's say, a good student. Quite a bit of a rebel.
Yeah.
But I went through corporal punishment. I got the strap.
Yeah. Yep.
And our principal was awesome because he had metal studs in his strap.
Oof. Yeah.
And I'm allergic to metal. I didn't know that. But I got 2 weeks off school because my hands got infected. And only because I was standing up for another student who was in kindergarten. Yeah. And I got the strap for it. But I mean, I got 2 weeks off school. I had a 2-week holiday. Was it worth it? Yes. Did I know I was going to get it? Yes. I took the punishment. But even in public school, we went through corporal punishment.
And I would say that's abuse. Certainly would be considered abuse enough to get a teacher or principal fired, for sure, if they ever did anything like that today. You know, but that was going on back then, yeah. And that's abuse.
That was in public school. I mean, we grew up with that. That was part of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Humiliation was another one.
Yeah.
In public schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, you'd be humiliated in front of the whole school. In the hallway, we had a principal who, you had silver lines down the school in those days.
Yeah.
And everybody was to walk on those silver lines. And God forbid if you stepped off.
Yeah.
You got a detention. If you wore a mini skirt, they would hand you a pair of scissors to take the hem down.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have to walk around like that all day.
Yeah.
We knew there was rules, and yes, some of us pushed the rules. But yeah, we went through corporal punishment. I mean, yes, there were. I mean, we had some Indigenous people come to our school.
Mm-hmm.
They were being integrated into our public school.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for these kids because a lot of them did come, and when we had the TB testing, they showed positives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I felt bad for them because of that. I mean, they were shuffled around like dice.
Yeah, it was, you know, when it happened at my school with the integration, you could see that like some of the kids that came were really well behaved, and there were some that were like a few that were like really, really hard to handle.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know why exactly, but it became actually very disruptive to the classes that I attended, like the classrooms that I was in when those kids were present. But it just, in hindsight, highlights the challenges that I think as a society we were going through at the time. Just a variety of social issues that we're facing. I think those kids, that they probably weren't getting the supports or something that they needed at home or whatever. I just don't know, because I just didn't know enough about their home life and where they'd come from. Like this started in my school when I was in about grade 7. So I only had a couple of years of it in elementary school, but what happened to them in those years prior, they weren't in the school prior to that. But man, when they came in grade 7 and 8, it changed things a lot. So I'm aware. I'm aware.
Yeah, and that's when we got them. I mean, I was going to school in Ottawa at that time, in public school, and it would be like, well, they say middle school because went to one school from 1 to 6, and then another one that went from 1 to 8. So they shuffled the ones that were passing from 6 to 7 to this other school.
Yeah.
And so I went to another school, and yes, we had a lot of Indigenous kids come there. I mean, when you look back on it and you think, if they had have done that, if it had been in reverse, that is such an awful thing to do. I mean, rip the kids. It'd be like now, TAS walking into your house and saying, taking your kids and they're going to this school.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you like it or not, this is where they're going. That is a horrible thing, and it makes you realize why some of these kids were so hard to handle. They're ripped from one place and put in another and told them this is how it's going to be. And the family is being torn apart by their kids being forced to go that way and not keep their traditions.
Right. Yeah, it's like it's like forcing somebody to not speak their language, you know, or not practice their religion. It's their culture, right? So, yeah.
It is. It's their culture. I mean, we bring a bit of our culture to Canada when we go. Like, I'm Scottish. So I've been here since 57. So I may as well say I'm more Canadian than Scottish. But we bring a part of that with us, and we want to hold on to it. But I mean, they were here when the boats landed.
Yeah.
So, and I look back and I go, what made the government the right to say, no, you're going to follow our tune? When they were here greeting the boats for the pilgrims. Sorry, but,
well,
I mean, they were here first.
And
yet,
I'll share a story. I was one of the kids that came to our school, First Nations kid. Name was Jason. I won't say any more than that, but we played hockey together. He was on my hockey team, and he was in my class. This is in grade 7. And we used to have to go walk over from one school to a different school. It was like a 20-minute walk, and we'd have to go do this because they had a shop there. And we had shop class to learn how to, machinery and stuff. It was just one of the things we did in that grade. And so Jason decided one day, we were friends, but he just had issues, right? Problems. And he was hard for the teachers to handle, really hard. He'd threaten the teachers, and he was large. I think he'd been held back a few grades, so he probably should have been in high school. A lot bigger than all the other kids, right? Because he just was older. And in shop class one day, he decided he didn't like me anymore. So he took a rod, and he went over to the grinder, and he sharpened it into like a shank. And then there was a back room where you would go to get materials like wood or pieces of sheet metal or whatever to work on stuff. And I was in the back room, and he came in and he pins me up against the wall, and he's holding the shank right up against my freaking neck. And he said, and then he's like threatening me, and like I hadn't done anything to him, right? So I'm a kid, grade 7. I've got this other kid who's a lot older, a lot bigger, and he's holding this shank up against my neck like he's gonna kill me, and he tells me that he's gonna beat the crap out of me after school. Like, it's one thing to, like, that's a pretty common thing back in those days for like one kid to threaten another, right? But this was pretty freaking serious. And then it just went on constantly for the rest of the year like that. And he would follow me around the shop during shop class, and he'd get sharp objects and stuff. He'd come stand right beside me and then hold something up to my neck when the teacher wasn't looking. It's just constant. And I never really understood it. But, later, after I went to high school, he went to jail because he stabbed a kid who was riding like an ice cream cart, had a summer job, and he robbed the kid and stabbed him, and he ended up going to jail. Like, but this is because, like, I just think it's probably because of where he came from or just problems that he had at home. I don't know, but it made no sense to me. But this was something that was pretty disruptive to me when I was in school. But I don't hold any grudges. I just look back on it and I actually pity him. I wish that you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know my daughter, when my daughter, she's 39 now, but when she was in high school, she had braces, and she switched to this one school. I mean, we were in London, so it was an East End school. I won't name the school. But they had a group there, and they also had a group in the Westmount area. And these groups were called the tribes. And my daughter, when she went to the East End High School, this one girl, I don't know, they took a dislike to my daughter. She had blonde hair, blue eyes. Everybody almost in the rest of the school either had dark hair or brown hair. I don't know what it was they had against my daughter. We could never figure it out. Because my daughter was pretty shy. She had a lot of anxiety, fears and stuff. But they got around her at school, and they did what they called a circle beat. And this bunch, and they were Indigenous, they threatened my daughter constantly. She would try to go out one door, and they would block the door for her to leave school. So they'd have another crew at the other door. So she's kind of like trapped. And when she tried to bring this to the school's attention, they said she was just making it up. Till it came to the point where one of the days she finally got out the door ahead of them by leaving class early. But they did a circle beat of her in the yard. And when I rushed to the school to pick her up, because she had braces, inside of her mouth was totally lacerated from the beatings that she took from this crew. And they were called the tribe. This is what they called themselves. And even the teachers were afraid. There was like 10 of them. And even the teachers were afraid of them. And this was back in the 90s.
Well, I was in a split 7-8 class just because of the challenges they were having with, enrollment numbers. And we had a new teacher come in grade 7, and he lost his job because he couldn't control the class because of the disruptions that were caused. But at the same time, I had some pretty good experiences too, because there was a girl from who had been, integrated into the system from one of the reserve, and her name was Rachel, and she was a friend of mine, and she kind of took a shine to me, and she made me a dream catcher, and I still have that thing. I don't have it here. I think it's still at my parents' house, but it's still in it's still around. I still have it someplace. I've always kept it. So this is the balance, right? You got to put things in perspective, even when you're being threatened.
Yes, but it's like apples in a barrel. You're always going to find a bad one, but there's always going to be more good ones than bad ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I had a lot of.
Well, I got a beautiful story.
Oh, there's Dragon.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, sir.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I mean, your story makes me remind me mine actually. Not so a beautiful one actually, but you'll catch up. When I was at school in the 90s, actually in Montreal, a lot of things were going on, and I mean, in a school where, as a Frenchie, with a lot of English people, I mean, it was a bilingual school, right? Called Vanguard. So I was in that school, and the people used to be, I was the guy who was beat up all the time. So basically, I was the reject little guy.
Welcome to the club.
So in my class, and that was my English class, one year on 1994, if I remember well. There's those 4 guys, the 4 bully, right? Kind of like, Bart Simpson and the 4 bully, right? At school. So those 4 bully, bigger and higher than me, decided one day that because I don't want it to go out of the class because they were the one who were disrupting, and I being disruptive because I was arguing with them to stop being disruptive. You catch the whole thing now.
Yep.
The teacher decided that I was supposed to be the one who get outside of the class. So I kind of, disagreed with that and said, no, I want them to get out of the class because I'm not going to pay for them, right? I need to learn, and they don't want to learn because they just blah, blah, blah in the class and shit. So they were probably afraid of those 4 bullies because at the moment as the teachers start to go out to catch the principal, those 4 bullies catch me on my chair and strap me on my chair, basically, with their hands, and wake me up to the alleyway and throw the chair with me still sitting on it. So basically, it kind of destroyed my back for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I was bullied too, being small, having red hair. And then on top of that, if my parents ever showed up at school, nobody could understand my parents because they spoke strong Scottish. So that was just an inkling for people to pick on me. And yeah, I got bullied all the time. I finally got to the point where I'd had enough bullying and I was going to fight back. And what happened to me even in grade 1 and grade 2, because I was living up north in Timmins, I had, my mother would put my hair in ringlets and I hated it. So then she put it in pigtails and I hated that even more because the people behind me, it was always redhead, pee the bed kind of crap. Mm. They would pull my hair and of course I would yell. They wouldn't get caught pulling my hair, but I'd get caught yelling. So I would get punished for yelling in class. at 6 and 7 years of age. So the teacher's remedy for that was to put my desk in the cloakroom at the back of the class. So instead of the ones being punished, I got punished. But in a way, you know
I
what,
was the
Dragon?
one also at the back of the class.
Yeah, and you know what though, Dragon? It was great in a way because I was away from the troublemakers, although I got teased for it out of class. But I was away from the troublemakers and I could concentrate on my work. And I guess
they were putting the bullies in the front, so they were right in front of the teacher, so they can keep an eyes on them. But at the same time, they keep you in the back, so you're probably less disrupted. But at the same time, you feel like that little black ducky in the corner.
Yes, you're being already centered out by being put in the back.
I have a story about another girl that was in my class when I was younger, and she had problems too. And she's not First Nations girl. I don't know what her problem was, but she was like just wild, and the teachers couldn't handle her. And what she would do is she had like some disorder or something. She would like draw all over her desk with her pencils and so on. And the janitor would have to come in and he would like put cleaner on her desk and it would just turn black because all the graphite from the pencils was so thick on the top of her desk. And the teacher just got frustrated with her. So the teacher put her at the back of the room, and then the teacher took me because I guess she thought I was a good kid, and put me beside her and thought that I would be a good influence on her, right? So that she wouldn't maybe learn not to draw on her desk and be a pain in the neck. And so I got to like her, right? We're sitting there and and this went on for like a week or so. But I realized what she really just needed was a friend and somebody she could relate to. So what I did is I started to draw on her desk, and then I got her to draw on mine. And then we were drawing on each other's desks, and the teacher comes by and she looks down, and both of our desks are now covered in in pencil. And the teacher just threw up her arms and she got really mad at me. But I was like, you know what? That was the best thing I think that I could have done, because the girl, I can't remember her name now, but she just needed a friend. That's all she really needed. And that's how I could, ultimately, that's how I was able to reach her, and we could communicate and talk, and we got to like each other, because instead of me being an influencer, she was an influence on me.
Yeah. And it's like seize the day and saying we all agree we are a land of the misfits.
We are, and that's generally the way I approach things too. Is like, if you can't beat them, join them, right? And I think I'm pretty much a misfit myself. So the teacher had me pegged wrong. I was on the other kid's side.
Totally agree with you. Yeah. No, I used to draw a lot also. I mean, Rick, if you would have been my teacher, just for an example, if you would have been my teacher, you would have probably have no trouble with me doing drawing all the time when you were teaching things, because I was at least listening.
Oh, those were the days.
Yeah, some people could do two things at one time. You know, you could, like, even when I'm on the phone, or not now, but if I'm talking to somebody and I get on the phone with one of my friends in London, and it's funny because this woman was the biggest pain in my ass when I first started working in London, or the last job I had, which was Canadian Linen. Anyway, I started there and she had such a chip on her shoulder. And it was like, why do you answer like that? Like, you're so abrupt. Well, because I've been here longer. I said, well, okay, that's great. But just because I don't know the job yet, I said, it doesn't mean I'm an idiot. I said, you don't know anything about me. You don't know what kind of experience I have. You don't know what my background is. So why are you being a bitch? And I put it right to her. She wouldn't talk to me for weeks. But what I did in hindsight was every time she would go to move a large bin, or she would, oh, here, let me help you. Oh, no, don't do that. I'll help you with that. I got to the point where I was so helpful, I was annoying. Because I wanted to get under this woman's skin so bad to be friends. Like, hey, we're all here together. We're here for 8 hours. So let's get along. Don't be a bitch. Don't come in like, I said, like, I have problems too, but I leave them at home and I come to work. She said, yeah, well, you're always smiling. I said, well, I don't have a choice. I said, if you looked around the room at some of the people in here, all you got to do is laugh. I mean, come on. So that started it. And then I got under her skin. I mean, she would talk to me every day. Hey, how's it going? Then I would pick her up on her way to work. We'd stop, get coffee, and drive up Adelaide and go to work. And it's funny how things evolve. If you take the time, and in my respect was annoying her with jokes, it got to the point where now we're the best of friends. We're on the phone all the time, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours. I'm helping her with her computer or her phone or whatever. And it's funny how things evolve. Because now we're both retired. And she'll call me up, and my ringtone from her it's the dark side is calling. That's my ringtone for her when she calls. But it's funny how things change. It's like, and it talks like Yoda, so she said, what'd you put that on there for? I said, because you are from the dark side. I said, you're old. No, she says, I'm not. I'm older. I said, well, it's the same damn thing, girl. But it's funny how things can evolve. Like when I went to work, I always had to go in and not with a chip on my shoulder, but I would have one-liners, or I would have something that would break the ice with people. Mm-hmm. And that's how I went to work every day. I mean, I didn't like to go to work every day. Nobody likes to work 9 to 5 or whatever. But going in that way, a lot of them didn't like me. And did I care? No. I didn't give a shit. I'm here to work like you, and if you don't like me, well, then don't talk to me. Don't get in my face. But we're here for 8 hours. We may as well get along and make fun out of it. I mean, we're stuck here. It's funny how things change. Because now, like I say, we talk on the phone all the time. And before that, she wouldn't have given me the time of day.
Here's Tinfoil Hat saying, straws the best. I don't know what that means. Are we talking about Trump signing the executive order to get rid of
paper straws?
There's the most important thing he's done so far. And I can get behind the plastic straws. I don't like the paper straws either. But
well, they're saying there's more toxins in that because there's a glue in the paper straw.
Yeah. Sarah, you can't win. You can't win.
You can't. I quit eating glue when I was in grade school.
That's good.
You know what?
You learn.
I always stay myself away from glue, and my dad, when I was a kid, said something along the way that to stay away from glue because when you sniff it, you can get dizzy.
Oh yeah, airplane glue. They used. I don't know if you know, Dragon. They used to, when we were kids, we tried everything. You put airplane glue in a plastic bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you would breathe that.
Oh yeah, my dad used to tell me about that.
Did you do that?
Because I mean, in my town of Montreal,
oh my,
collective.
You did that?
Oh yeah.
Airplane and collector airplane and stuff like that, or any collection type of thing that you would glue together. I mean, this was in Montreal one big thing. I mean, everyone was, buying collector stuff like that. So yeah, I know.
Oh man, I used
to.
Actually, you know what? When I was
17,
don't do that. That kills brain cells bad.
One of my friends.
That's
no,
what
I
happened.
mean, I never done that. I never done that. But the thing is that I've seen so much bad thing in my life. Like one of my friend at school, one day I was about 17. We go to his place, and the guy was puffing, and I'm not doing jokes. He was doing thing with butane the butane can. I mean, at
How
some
did we
point,
get
some
on
people
this?
doesn't know what to do anymore.
How to do drugs
And
on Maverick
I will
News.
say, guys, don't do that at home. Okay, this is really
Don't
bad
do
for
this.
your health.
Don't do this. This is bad. This is not
Yes.
healthy. This is bad for your
Well,
brain.
you know when
and
you
your
were a
body.
kid, and people would say, "Oh, you better not do that. Don't do that." So you try it once.
No.
Oh yeah. It
No,
gave me
when
a
they
headache.
said you
That
shouldn't
was
sniff
it.
the glue, I was like, yeah, good idea. Not going to do that. That's what I said. I
No, but
see why that's probably not
seriously, guys,
smart. I didn't do it.
Because all the people I know that did those things, their life are destroyed and does nothing of their life but
Well, except
standing on the
Isabel,
street for money.
She managed to escape.
Oh yeah, I only tried it once. That was like the one thing that I thought I would play hooky from school, and I got caught.
Oh no, not
I
me.
thought my parents were out of town. The school called to see if I was okay, why I wasn't at school. And my mother goes, "Well, she's at school. I wasn't. I was at my girlfriend's house." What we were trying, we did some stupid things. Like in the day, you would buy jeans, and they weren't tight enough. So you'd put your jeans on, you'd go to your friend's house, and you'd sit in a tub of hot water, and then you'd walk around till your jeans would shrink, but then your legs turned blue.
Okay.
I never got caught. I never got in trouble for playing hooky. I had very sophisticated ways of doing it. I would get a doctor's note, and then I would photocopy it, right? And then I'd have the note, and then all you had to do was just make another copy and use whiteout and make another copy and then change the dates and things on it. And then you could just hand it in again. Any day you want it off, it wasn't that complicated. I had so much time off school. It's amazing. I graduated high school. Oh,
yeah, but see, I went to public school in the early 60s, so we didn't have a way of copying stuff, right?
Well, you could just go down to you get at the library. There were places to get photocopies back then, right? So I was like, if I make a copy of this, and then I do that, and then I could just get a day off school.
Oh, you were devious.
Oh, I took so much time off and never got caught. Just here's a doctor's note.
I think the worst we ever did was my parents used to give me, because in Ottawa in those days it was 10 cents to take the bus. So I would be like 14. So my mother would give me 10 cents to take the bus each way. So that was 40 cents.
Yeah.
But I didn't come home for lunch. I said, nah, I'll keep the money. I won't go home for lunch, Mom. I'll just keep it for the next day. I wasn't stupid. I was walking to school and walking home, but she thought I was taking the bus. But I would go to the corner store, and you could get a pack of smokes, a small pack, for 36 cents. So I had a small pack of cigarettes, and I had 4 cents left over, and I could buy a wad of black balls for 4 cents.
You're bad.
Happy.
You're a bad kid. You're really bad. Oh my God.
I had a pea jacket, and our gym teacher used to check our jacket pockets. So what I did was I ripped the lining of my pocket, and I would put my cigarettes up in the lapel of my pea jacket. So she could check my pockets all she wanted. She'd never find the cigarettes because they were up in my lapel.
You guys are a bad influence to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the whiteout, the kids used to sniff the whiteout too. Did you do that, Isabel? Did you sniff the whiteout? No, I didn't do that either. But a lot of kids did.
I did try baked banana peels though.
What?
You would bake them in the oven until they were black.
Baked banana peels. Oh.
We did that at my friend's house. All that did was make me throw up. It's supposed to make you high, but it made me throw up. That was the end of that.
Banana peels are supposed to make you high?
Supposed to. Well, you mix them with aspirin.
Where do you get all this? Like, wow. Okay.
Don't grow up in Ottawa, okay? It's a bad influence.
I just had no interest in blowing my mind, I guess. Okay. Banana peels and aspirin at $4.50 for 20 minutes.
You had to cook them till they were black, almost like ashes.
Yeah.
and then you were supposed to mix it with the crushed aspirin and a little bit of water, so it'd be like a paste.
Well, no wonder
All
it'd
it
make
did was
you dizzy. It'd make you feel sick and puke.
Oh yeah, I did. I puked. That was it. And I don't like throwing up. No. The funny thing is, I am a born and bred homeopathic. So there you go.
Well, you're going to need a remedy after eating burned bananas with aspirin and a glass of water. Yeah. And then, what'd you do today? I sniffed some glue, stuck a little whiteout up my nose, and ate some burned bananas with aspirin and a chaser of water. Like, then I puked.
Cheap drugs, right?
Wow, what a party.
And you wonder why, like I say to my kids, and you wonder why I'm loopy. I did all this by the time I was 14. Okay, no more.
My God, where did I attract you guys from? Like, how did I get mixed up with this motley crew? Oh my God.
We're wacko.
See, there was I years ago I did a story about Lysol drinkers because the pharmacies and all the stores in this neighborhood in Windsor took the Lysol off the shelves. I went to go buy some one day, and they were keeping it all behind the counter, and I asked why, and they told me it's because people in the neighborhood, who are, not the poor people, were drinking the Lysol. I was like, what? Yeah, they're alcoholics, but they don't have any money, so they come in and they buy the Lysol, and then they drink it. So I went down and I found a couple of people who did this, and one guy in particular, he was in really rough shape, and he would hang out at the local roadhouse in the neighborhood. And I did a story with him. I had to question, the ethics even behind doing it, but he wanted to show me, or he did how he did it. He would like take a can opener, pierce the can, pour the Lysol in a pitcher, and mix it with water, and drink it. And I put him on the news. I did a whole story about it because I wanted to tell people about it, right? And I showed him doing it. And then I thought, and you tell me, what do you think about the ethics of this? Should I have stopped him? Should I have videotaped him doing it? I mean, he was doing it anyway, not just because I was there.
I don't think you could have stopped him. When they're into something like that, it's like an addiction. It's like when people buy cough syrup that are alcoholics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Same thing.
We had that in the news where people were doing a run on cough syrup that had an alcoholic content in it.
Yeah. I've always struggled with that when, was it the public served better by me showing it and talking to somebody who actually was doing it or not? And I've always wrestled with that question, even years later, even sitting here now. There's an element of guilt, and yet, I mean, I wasn't asking him to do something that he wasn't doing anyway.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wonder, should I have said, no, don't do it, man. Like, just stop. And
yeah,
I have to live with that,
it's
right?
probably not as it's probably not as safe as rolling a cigarette or whatever, but it's probably the same that if you would have come toward a smoker and say, okay, so how does consummation of this drug or this thing comes, and the guy, start to show you how he used the thing. So yeah, it's kind of harsh, and it's a hard subject also.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I thought John Rimby from Alberta was going to call in tonight. I spoke to him earlier, and I haven't seen him phone in yet. I don't know if he was on the phone earlier, but if you want to call in, John from Alberta, my friend, it's 1-647-734-4220. Just hit that PIN number, 860-075-764, followed by the #, the #.
Well, since now that I've corrupted everybody.
Yeah. Oh, my. You're the black sheep of the Maverick family, that's for sure. You and your banana peels.
I know. Hey, I was the black sheep of my family, too, so that's okay.
I wonder what's going on over here in the chat. Is anybody
That's
else
okay. You
surprised
start
and
to
shocked by
drag it.
Isabel tonight?
They're probably going, no.
Yeah. Who's in the chat there? Johnny from Toronto. Yeah, Johnny saying he knows people who are abused by nuns or priests or whatever in the residential school system. And Lindy, oh, Rick, that's so funny. Whatever it was I said, that was a while back, I guess. I'm glad I gave somebody a chuckle. And Eagles 37, Chiefs 6, third quarter. Well, I'd say the Chiefs are having a little bit of trouble. And, oh, Taylor Swift can't be happy about that.
Oh, poor Taylor.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, you know what? We can put a Swift hammer to it.
Wow. Okay. And I guess everybody was so concerned about Trump going to the Super Bowl. I saw videos. People sent me videos of people predicting, really dark and, doomsday type things happening if Trump went to the Super Bowl today. But so far, he seems pretty safe and everything's okay, I guess. I'm not watching, but I haven't seen any reports of anything bad happening to the president at the Super Bowl tonight.
Well, apparently they upped the security with drones and everything too, so.
Yeah, I don't know how the heck you provide security when the guy is there in the middle of a big crowd. Is he just out in the open tonight? Like, where is he sitting? Is he in a...
Yeah, I thought he was going to be in in the glassed area, up where Taylor Swift usually is, way up.
Hey, maybe...
But he's not. He's down in the crowd.
Is he? Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's a Secret Service nightmare.
And I think it's his daughter that's with him.
His who?
Or his daughter-in-law.
His daughter-in-law. Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
that's with him. And they're down in the crowd. They're not up in the big boxes up top, so...
Yeah,
that's probably where Taylor Swift is.
I wouldn't want to be responsible for the security on that.
No.
And for all of those who's asking, how's our Aryan territory around the Super Bowl? I believe that if I heard it right, and if I'm not mistaken or misleading anyone, there's a 30-kilometer radius around the Super Bowl. There's a no flying advisory around the Super Bowl area of 30 kilometers. So,
and I don't think this is news.
Yeah.
Very little of what we've been talking about here tonight is actual news, but Brian Howell says the first time he smoked a joint was when he saw the Who at Maple Leaf Gardens in 1976 when he was 13 years old. You too, sir, are a really bad kid.
See, 60s and 70s. Well, see, I calmed down because I got married in 72, so I calmed down by the time I hit 20.
You got married when you were 72? 1972? You got married in 72?
Yeah.
How old are you? I don't ever ask a lady her age.
I don't care. I was 20. I was 20 when I got married. I met my husband when I was 16 on a blind date in Ottawa.
Oh.
Yep.
A blind date.
So
tell us the details. I want the dirty details on your date. Your blind
What's
date.
that?
Tell us the details on your blind date.
Oh, he was what do they call it? He was in the militia. I can't remember the name of the building that was in Ottawa. It was right on Rideau Street. Can't remember the name of the stupid building. But I met him there. And I wasn't going to go, because I had broke off with this other guy. But my parents got tired of me sitting at home and told me to get the hell out and go somewhere and do something. So I did.
Oops.
And
next thing you know, you're married.
And I met him at 16. It was the Wallace House. That's what it was called, the Wallace House. And and I met him there. There was it was kind of a competition, and I knew nothing about the competition between him and another guy. But it was pretty obvious that the one I ended up marrying, which was Richard, anytime I would leave the room to get a drink or go to the washroom, he was standing in the doorway. So I had to pass him every time to go in or out of this room for the dancing. And the competition ended, I guess, because he ended up taking me home. So yeah, my parents weren't happy with that. Sorry, Dragon. My husband was French. And my parents didn't like him. Which made me like him all the more. Huh?
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
his
I
name-
mean, being French, to me, it's a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of
Oh,
people
yeah.
who like Frenchies.
Oh, yes. Very much so. It's the
Yeah,
accent.
Dragon, the
So-
ladies love your accent. I mean, you're so charming and suave, and you get that French accent going with your English, and they're like putty in your hands, man. The ladies.
Well, I used to think my husband was being romantic when he would call me his belle clerk.
His what?
And then I found
His
out what that was.
What is that?
His little piece of shit.
Oh, okay. See, shows what kind of Canadian I am. My French is terrible.
I can understand pretty well, and I would never let my in-laws know.
Yeah.
So I always knew when they were talking about me, but not in detail, but I always got the hint of what they were saying, but they never knew that I understood French. My husband would never teach the kids French, and I wish he did. I wish he did. Would have been helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to
Yeah.
be thousands of Vaznez out there. Because when I go to a family reunion, it's like you get face cramp from smiling. There
Yeah.
are so many of them.
Be Lovely says blind dates usually don't go well in the chat over on Rumble, but I guess it went okay for you, Isabel.
42 years. So, I mean, marriage has got
Mind
ups
if I
and
ask
downs,
you
right?
a question?
Yeah.
Is that okay if I ask you a question? I don't want to go too much into the detail if you don't want to go in detail, but you're born in the 50s, right?
1952.
So you basically like 2 years apart of my father. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be 73 this year. And I
You
haven't
would have
learned
been
a thing,
71.
Dragon. Pardon?
You would have been 71 this year.
He would have?
Yeah, well, he passed away in 2005, but yeah.
Oh, same year as my mom. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, my husband passed in 2012. He hung me out here to go crazy by myself.
Well, listen, guys, it's getting close to the top of the hour, so I'm going to throw it over to you, Dragon, first for a final thought, and then we'll come over to Isabel as we kind of close out the show tonight. Maybe we can try to keep it news-oriented, but hey, this has been sort of like a group therapy session more than anything else, so feel free to just say whatever you want.
Well, let's go out.
Oh, just
with a
one
good
rule.
joke
Just one
for,
rule. No telling people how to do drugs. Okay?
Yeah, no.
Like, draw the
I'm
line
going
there.
to be beautiful with that. We're going to go on a beautiful note and a beautiful positive joke. So, how do you call a snowman lying?
I don't know.
A
I don't
snow
know.
fake.
A snow fake.
That's enough.
That's pretty good. That's a dad joke.
Okay. I got one for you.
That's a dad
Why
joke.
was the snowman smiling?
Sorry, say again?
Why was the snowman smiling?
Lay it on me.
The snowblower was coming.
Oh, my God. Oh, God. I hope no children are listening. Oh my.
Great night, you guys.
All right. Well, Dragon, you get to pick the song tonight. You want to listen to the closing song tonight of, I don't know, what do we have on available to us here? We have Little Black Corvette. Oh, we got, what's that one called? The Frankenrod or whatever. I can't remember what I called that one when I wrote that. Frankenrod. We got Magic 88. We got the grocery song. We got Free Dog.
Well, look Corvette.
You like
the little
Look
black
Corvette
Corvette.
been a
You
while.
like that one, eh? That's a pretty good one. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a 60, 70 car. Play that.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I mean, this is a little bit of Americana, a little bit of retro, and I guess it's appropriate since we've been, indulging in some nostalgia here tonight, going all the way back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. All right. Love you guys. All right.
Love you. Have a good night.
See you on the flip side.
Okay, Mavericks. You betcha. Once again, Dragon on the
flip side.
Well, she's sitting in the driveway all dressed in black. Got that slick paint, she got the knack. Chrome glimmers in the moonlight, like a star on the rise. When I slide behind the wheel, I feel alive. Oh, I can't deny, got the little black vest, she's my midnight ride. Rolling down the highway with my girl by my side. Fast as a whisper, smooth as a dream. In my little black vest, we're a rock and roll team. Leather seats and a rumble that shakes the ground. With the top down low, we're lost in the sound. That engine growls like a lion's roar. Every mile we take, I just want more. Got the little black vest, she's my midnight ride. Rolling down the highway with my girl by my side. Fast as a whisper, smooth as a dream. In my little black van, we're a rock and roll team. Oh, the world slows down when we hit that street. The wind in our hair can't beat me. With the guitar laying under the stars so bright. In my little black van, everything feels right.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.